Hello, everyone. So I haven't done these in a few years, but we were kind of looking through, refining some of these videos, and so uh, so uh, let's just get right into it. So our first chapter for Unit 4 is titled Technological Innovations. Here's our summary. The first videos are kind of really focused on why exploration happened the way that it did in Europe and why Europe was in a unique position to expand itself. Okay. And it's actually a very light vocabulary chapter. It should be a relatively short video, but I do find whenever I say it's going to be a short video, it is quite a long video. So hopefully I didn't jinx it there. Um, so the first subtopic we have here is developments in transoceanic trade. So to kind of recall what was going on in Europe in units 1 and 2 in this period, 1200 to 1450, remember that Europe really existed on the periphery of the Eurasian trade routes. When I say periphery, I mean like on the outside of it, right? It really was consuming goods after they had kind of traveled the course of the trade routes from Africa or Asia. And we're kind of getting to Europe at their most expensive. And why that's really important to understand is that the price of these goods creates the demand to find alternative access to those goods that are so expensive, right? And so that is like when we think about why Europe does this more than anything else, that kind of economic cause is why they are looking for direct routes. Now, that alone does not cause it to happen. There are going to be some things we're going to talk about in the next slide that really enable that, also the next video as well. But really, it is that idea that Europe needs to wants access to China, to India, because those are the goods they really want. But by the time they get through the Silk Road or through the Trans-Saharan trade route, they have been bought and sold so much and at an increasing markup that they're so expensive by the time they get to Asia. Now, I don't know why AMSCO puts that here, but the presumption is also that when Europe expands, it's going to be a disrupting force, and it is disruptive. And so, events like the Omani-European rivalry is when Europe kind of moves into the Indian Ocean trade. Established trade groups like the Arabs in Oman challenge them both economically, not so much militarily, on the Omani side, and stuff like that. And then the term for this entire chapter and unit is going to be maritime empires. What makes these states different than the land based empires we've talked about in Unit 3 are that they are states that are using often the exact same methods of conquest, development, legitimization, and consolidation, but they have access to overseas territories, possessions, and benefits. Okay. So in a lot of ways, they're like land-based empires plus in some ways. They do all the things that land-based empires do, but then with a little bit of water that kind of brings it all together for the state. Okay. And so AMSCO talks about how like Europe kind of puts itself in the center of the developing global trade network. So in America, they cultivated cash crops like sugar and tobacco, and then refined some of that sugar into rum. They've been very odd objects. In Africa, they sold those goods into African populations and then purchased enslaved people to then enable and increase productivity of their cultivation in America. And then in Asia, they use the rapidly acquired wealth from their triangular trade to purchase silk, spices, and for whatever reason, AMSCO said rhubarb, but porcelain would be another very valuable luxury good that that the Europeans wanted from China specifically. Let me move up because that is the challenge with this screen casting software I use. Okay, hopefully you can go back and get the gist. So this is going to be kind of running through some well-worn territory for you probably already. The ideas that we began to talk about that enabled trade, and specifically the Indian Ocean trade, are going to be essential to the development of maritime empires in the period 1450 to 1750. And so first, there are these ideas that occur more kind of within Europe, like through the scientific revolution and before the Renaissance, AMSCO uses specifically the example of gravity. When Isaac Newton articulates an understanding of gravity, that enables eventually the understanding of the tides and understanding when sailors understanding when they can move closer to a coast, when they can be further away from a coast without hitting dangerous rocks because of the ebb and flow of the tides. They also kind of bring an idea from way before here, astronomical charts. People have been understanding the pattern of the movement of celestial bodies for a very, very long time. But before the introduction of these technologies we're about to talk about, the astronomical chart was the most reliable means of navigation and still is a tool in the toolkit of a early modern navigator, right? That most navigators, even though they have access to other technologies, maintain an updated star chart to know, to have kind of a backup plan if other technology fails. But the kind of key technologies to recall from Unit 1 and 2 would be the compass, the stern rudder, the lateen sail. Those three technologies all come to Europe in their own time, but by 1450 have begun to be integrated into the building of ships. A few weeks ago, a student asked me what exactly were the values of lateen sails, and I kind of gave the answer that AMSCO gave, but I wasn't really confident on it. So I did look into that and did some extra research into that question. And ultimately, what a lateen sail does more than anything is it allows a ship to travel with less sail. It has less surface area. It's easier to produce, so it makes shipbuilding shipbuilding quicker. Makes repairs faster in that way. So lateen sails really are a process that accelerates productivity. It does the same with less, but it's not like if you add like 18 lateen sails, you go 18 times faster. That's how physics work. But that's the important thing with a lateen sail. I kind of don't know what AMSCO is talking about when they talk about like it lets ships go in both directions. That is not what my research indicated. It just made shipbuilding easier and repairs of ships easier, which then does make your economy more productive because when your ship gets damaged or when you need to build more ships, it's a quicker process. The names of the ship types that come out of this development would be the carrack, caravel, and flute. These are all just different versions of the same kind of idea that Europeans use to travel more. But I think something that we want to take note of is that when we think about the scientific history or technological history, and a really important trend that kind of comes with modernization is that while in history class we talk about like the one thing, the first lateen sail ever used is not as efficient as the most recently produced lateen sail. That over time, engineers, scientists, thinkers improve ideas, refine ideas, iterate on old ideas to improve them marginally, right? That the story of science is not one of revolutionary singular discoveries. It's about hundreds or thousands of discoveries that contribute to a breakthrough eventually, right? And that's happening with anything that when we talk about world history and technological development. And in this case, we're talking about the speed of ships, the size of ships, the durability of ships, and things like that. So in the long term, the most important consequence of these technologies is that now Europe can access these new places. They eventually get access to Africa, then go around Africa into Asia, specifically like the Indian Ocean trade route, and then into East Asia eventually as well. But also they go westward. They go westward trying to find a route to find a route to East Asia, but end up colliding with the supercontinent of America, what we call North and South America. But really, at this point, it's just one continent because there's no Panama Canal separating it, right? So it is really just one continent. They stumble into that, and that really is going to change the entire trajectory of humanity. Okay, and I think that was our first video, and I will see you guys in the second video.